Day 2 of the Republican National Convention riding high in the afterglow of an eventful kickoff. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation from our Washington studio. I'm John Jessup. Well, former President Donald Trump freshly crowned the nominee after officially clinching enough delegates and revealing his running mate, stole the show with an opening night appearance to an emotional welcome from the Milwaukee crowd. CBN Washington correspondent Caitlin Burke has the details and joins us now. Caitlin.
John, in his first public appearance since Saturday's assassination attempt, Trump became the GOP nominee for the third time.
With the weekend's events serving as a rally point for supporters, the former president's entrance made for a dramatic moment as he walked in with a bandage covering his right ear.
The devil came to Pennsylvania holding a rifle, but an American lion got back up on his feet and he roared!
Even in the most perilous moment this week, his instinct was to stand and to fight.
The convention's opening day sets up a week talking about Republican issues. Monday's theme, Make America Wealthy Again, hit hard on the economy. Tonight, the focus shifts to crime. The slogan, Make America Safe Again.
We must unite as a party, and we must unite as a nation. We must show the same strength and resilience as President Trump and lead this nation to a greater future.
President Biden, meanwhile, is back on the campaign trail, focusing on the crucial swing state of Nevada, speaking today at the NAACP National Convention. When asked about Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, Biden commenting simply,
"He's a clone of Trump on the issues."
As the candidates focus their attention back on November, others are still sorting out Saturday, with the FBI releasing new details from their investigation into the Trump assassination attempt. They say the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, purchased 50 rounds of ammunition from a Pennsylvania gun shop. A motive for the attack, however, still remains unclear.
The Homeland Security Department and FBI now warn violent extremists could try to conduct follow-on or retaliatory attacks targeting election-related events. They encourage law enforcement to remain vigilant, reporting an uptick in online chatter. John?
Something to watch out for. CBN's Caitlin Burke. Thank you so much, Caitlin. Well, here now for more is David Brody, CBN's chief political analyst. David, before we get to the RNC, there's breaking news that I'd love to get you to comment on from earlier today. New Jersey Senator, powerful Democrat from New Jersey, Bob Menendez, found guilty on corruption charges. More than 30 of his Senate Democratic colleagues have called for him to resign, not to mention that he's running as an independent in the New Jersey Senate race. David, your reaction, and how might this affect the race and the balance of power in the U.S. Senate?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, has now called on Menendez to resign, finally, after a conviction. By the way, Menendez facing decades behind bars. He'll be sentenced in October, late October. As to how it affects the race, it most likely won't affect the race. It is a relatively close race in New Jersey between the Democrat Andy Kim and the Republican Curtis Bradshaw. It's about 6 points or so. Menendez getting about 3% right now, but if he drops out, you would think a lot of that will go to Andy Kim, so I'm the Democrat. So I'm thinking it probably stays in Democrats' hands regardless.
David, as Caitlin reported earlier, it was a very emotional first night in Milwaukee. It's been about 24 hours, though, a little more than 24 hours. Can you talk about the Republican Party's reaction after Senator J.D. Vance was named as the VP pick? And also, how does his selection help reach beyond MAGA world?
Well, that second part of it, the latter part of that question, John, is a good question because if you're looking for a pick that was kind of a GOP establishment type pick, not happening. You know, Mike Pence in 2016, more of a GOP establishment pick. This one is not. This is, I mean, J.D. Vance is MAGA through and through. He presents kind of an intellectual version, if you will, of MAGA. In other words, he's very well spoken, Yale law school, the whole thing. And so that was part of the allure for Donald Trump. And also the fact that, you know, he looks good on TV, as Donald Trump would say. So that's important. So that right now, the reaction's all thumbs up. Obviously, we know about his history, some of the negative things he has said about Donald Trump, and they were pretty bad. They'll have to do damage control there. But look, he's an economic populist guy. He's a non-interventionist, exactly what Donald Trump wants from a policy perspective. And I believe this is a MAGA mantle passing, if you will. J.D. Vance, 39 years old, would be the third youngest vice president. Richard Nixon, one of them. And, of course, John Breckinridge back in 1821. Of course, we've all heard of him. Yeah, right. I even had to look him up. So anyhow, the point is that young guns coming now for MAGA in the next generation, potentially.
John Breckinridge, way before our time, so we look like young guns too, David.
Your time, not my time.
David, during President Biden's sometimes testy interview with NBC's Lester Holt, he called for Americans to cool down the temperature when it comes to political division. Will his performance help cool down calls for him to bow out of the race? That's the question in about a minute or so that we have left, David.
Yeah, there's an inside-out game going on here. So the inside game is there's a lot of Democrats still trying to call for or trying to get Biden to step down and resign. Having said that, the outside kind of game that you're seeing play out for the cameras, if you will, is that train has left the station. In other words, Biden is in this all the way. We'll see. Some more bad gaffes, and it could change. But at this point, I think Biden stays in. You know, I wasn't thinking he would. But after the assassination attempt on President Trump's life, I think Democrats realize they can't have any more discord. They've got to stick with Biden.
A lot of things that you cannot plan for during a presidential campaign. CBN's David Brody, thank you so much for your insights.
You bet. Thanks, John.
When we come back, a special look at Israel's war against Hamas. Faith Nation is back right after this. When Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, terrorists took scores of Israeli Jews as hostages, but they also captured Israeli Arabs and other foreign nationals. One Israeli Bedouin family was hit especially hard. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl brings us their story.
27-year-old Bashir al-Zayadna, a Bedouin Arab and law student, saw his life turned upside down by the events of October 7th.
I'm the spokesman of my family here in Tel Aviv, in the family's headquarters and the family's forum of the hostages. I had 4 family members kidnapped on the 7th of October and held as hostages as well.
Bashir's uncle Yosef and 3 of his children were working at the dairy in Kibbutz Cholit when Hamas attacked.
At 7:30 in the morning, they were captured. We saw photos, videos of them being held by Hamas. Very hard images, very hard footage.
Hamas released one son, Bilal, and daughter Aisha after nearly 2 months because they were both under 18.
They told us that they had almost no food. They've told us that they have been staying deep down in the tunnels. They've told us that although the guards of Hamas spoke Arabic and they speak also Arabic, they never shared a word together, never spoke together. All 4 of them were staying in the same room, and their guards gave 4 of them each one a Quran book, which is the Islamic holy book. It was very hard for them to stay in captivity.
Yosef and his son Hamza remain captive.
The father, who's 53 years old, who is still held as hostage in Gaza, has diabetes, and we know that he doesn't take his medications. Hamza al-Ziyadna is 22 years old, also still held as captive in Gaza by Hamas. He has migraines, and he also doesn't take his medication.
Unfortunately, the tragic impact doesn't end there.
I have a cousin of mine, whose name is Abdurrahman. He was murdered on the 7th of October by Hamas. He was murdered alongside his wife, who happened to be a Jew. They believed in coexistence and they could coexist together. They just fell in love and got married. They were just having fun in Zikim Beach. They stayed the night there, and we woke up with a very sad message of them.
Bashir, who lived in Sderot, wasn't there that day.
Luckily, I went to my mother's place the weekend it happened. I was in Rafah on the 7th of October. And now I'm in Tel Aviv because I have been evacuated from Gaza envelope to the center of Israel.
Another relative became a hero.
I'm an Arab Bedouin. I'm proud to be Israeli. I personally saved the lives of 30 people on that Black Sabbath.
Yosef al-Zayadna, a bus driver, provided transportation at the site of the Nova Music Festival. He tells CBN News he had dropped off passengers there earlier and planned to pick them up the afternoon of October 7th.
Around 6 a.m., the phone rang. I saw on the phone the name Amit Adar, the guy that had ordered the transport. He said, "Yosef, save us." I said, "What is it?" He said, "There's a mess, alarms, rockets. There are terrorists." I didn't think twice. I started my car and drove there.
Despite rockets, gunfire, and terrorists, he successfully rescued 30 people, packing them into his 14-seat bus.
All the young people that are brought back, thanks to God, they returned whole. No one was murdered. No one was kidnapped.
Later, Hamas found Yosef's phone number on Facebook, called, and threatened him.
For me, we're all human beings. There are good and there are bad people. And I did this as a person, a human being. In the end, we're one people, and this is our country, and we must live together.
This is a miracle that he went there and got out without any damage.
Bashir says the reaction of Israelis following the attack truly surprised him.
We saw people in Israel from all parts of the Israeli society come together, stand together, and fight together, and help each other. It doesn't matter if they were Jews, Arabs, Christians, Druzi, Muslims, liberals, Orthodox Jews. You saw all Israelis come together and behave like one big society that lifted one another.
Bashir says he's never viewed Hamas as representing Muslims or Palestinians. To him, it's a radical terrorist organization. That's one reason Bashir believes there's still hope for peace between Israel and the Palestinians.
We should find the common things that we cherish, and we should find focus on them, and we should find a way to heal our wounds and also fight for a better future for both of us, Israelis and Palestinians. What happened on the 7th of October should never happen again, and what is happening right now in Gaza should also never happen again.
Bashir says he wants people to pray for the war and violence to end and for peace in the world. Julie Stahl, CBN News.
Coming up, Israel insists winning the war in Gaza can only happen with the elimination of Hamas. What the Rafah invasion means for the stability of the Middle East. Next. Welcome back. For months, debate has raged over Israel entering Rafah to eliminate what's believed to be the last major Hamas stronghold. Now, some parents who've lost their kids since the fighting began are sending a clear message to the Israeli government. Get the job done. Here again is Chris Mitchell.
After the rally, the parents of those who died in Gaza on their way to the entrance of the city saying victory must be now.
We are over than 150 families that lost the kids since October 7th at the war. And we got together because we want to continue our kids' missions. Our kids, they went to fight against the Hamas. And we feel if the government will continue the war in a way how it's supposed to be, we're going to feel that our kids they died for nothing.
Noah's 20-year-old son Amit died while commanding his soldiers in Gaza.
They told us that all the time he was very small, but all the time he on the back, all the weapons and everything was on his back. He said, "Okay, I will take from here. I will take from here. I want that everything will be easy for them, but I'm very strong. I'm the commander."
They carry pictures of their fallen sons and daughters while urging action, believing the path to victory is through Rafah.
It's really about to send the message to our government. Don't give up to the pressure that's coming from Biden. Give the army the order, go into Rafah now. We believe that the key to destroy the Hamas is through getting to Rafah, Sinwar staying there, our hostages in Rafah. The only way to get them back and to win the war through Rafah.
Meanwhile, they worry about U.S. pressure on Israel to hold off.
When we started the war, we felt that Biden understands that we don't have a choice and we need to destroy the Hamas. Recently, I don't know, maybe it's politics in America behind that pressure that's coming from America. But we don't care about Biden politics. We care about the security of our nation, of our land. And we know that the key is to go into Rafah.
Jeff Daub came to show his support.
And these parents feel that what we have got to do in order to make the loss of their children worthwhile, meaningful, is to complete this operation and to eradicate Hamas completely.
Daub says Israel's goals follow the same goals pursued by the U.S. in recent conflicts.
When a fire department comes to answer a call and to put out a fire, they put out the fire entirely. They don't put out 80% of the fire and leave 20% of the fire burning. When the Americans and the coalition came in to eradicate ISIS, they eradicated them completely. They didn't leave them in Raqqa. They didn't leave them in Fallujah. They didn't leave them in Mosul and say, well, you know, we've completed most of the operation.
They also know the Middle East is watching.
We have no doubt that if we're not finished with the Hamas, if we're not going to destroy the Hamas, it's going to send a message to the rest of our enemies that they can deal with us. And we believe that if we're going to go into Rafah and finish with kill Sinwar and the rest of the Hamas forces, it's going to send a message to the rest of our enemies, don't play with Israel.
They say Western civilization is at stake.
But we are also very, very concerned that there have been efforts to undermine our efforts here, and that is to the ultimate loss of Western civilization, of the United States and our allies, because if we allow Hamas off the hook here now, it will give a tremendous tailwind to Islamic fundamentalist jihadists.
It's not only for the Israel future, it's also about the whole West, Europe, including America. If this war we're not going to end with destroying the Hamas, it's going to send a message to all the Muslim radical at the world. You can do it with Europe, you can do it also with America. So Mr. Biden, think about that. Leave the politics in America to the side and think about the great moment that we have here, that it's an opportunity to finish with the terror.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Young evangelicals and standing with Israel. When we come back, a look at the shifting support for the Jewish state among younger American Christians. As Israel's war against Hamas continues, some of the Jewish state's strongest supporters are evangelical Christians here in the United States. New research, however, shows that support is slipping among younger evangelicals. CBN's Paul Strand has reaction from Israel.
As recently as 5 years ago, 2/3 of young American evangelicals fully supported Israel, while only 5% backed the Palestinian cause. The latest polling shows, though, since then, that support for Israel has plunged to just 1/3, while support for Palestinians is up to 25%. We asked Jerusalem Post commentator Professor Gil Troy what he makes of this startling drop-off in support for the Jewish nation.
So is this poll a warning sign? Absolutely. But is this a time to panic? Absolutely not.
Gil Troy points out a vast majority of Americans, including evangelicals, still back the Jewish nation.
80% of Americans are supporting Israel. God bless the evangelical community, because we've seen for decades how stalwart the evangelical Christians have been, and we really feel a brotherhood and are very, very grateful.
Part of the change in young evangelical support comes because they have moved away from pro-Israeli media and toward mainstream and social media that Troy warns persistently portray Israel as an oppressor and an aggressor nation.
Beware of poison sources, of TikTok, of social media, of reducing a very complicated conflict, which has its dimensions, to a soundbite or to a tweet. We now call it an X. Go and learn. Plunge into the conflict. I am confident that we have truth on our side.
What do youth consistently hear from anti-Israel sources?
It's Israel the bully against the small Palestinians, when of course the Palestinians are part of a broader Arab world, part of an Iranian axis, which has billions, which targets little Israel.
Troy says if young people will take the time to research unbiased, balanced sources, they'll find that many Hamas and Palestinian supporters back genocide against the Jewish people and wiping Israel off the map, and more.
When our young people take a plunge in and see the truth and get beyond some of the propagandizing of some of these oversimplified professors and these influencers on TikTok, they'll see that this is a civilizational battle. Israel, the Jewish people, Zionists, Americans, liberals, conservatives, it doesn't matter who, we're all together defending freedom and defending equality. That's who we are. That's our fight today.
Israel may well become much less of an American priority, and that could mean this strong U.S. ally and the Middle East's only democracy might receive much less American military aid.
Troy, though, shares a more optimistic view of the future.
If you look at polling over the last 30, 40 years, the older you get, the more pro-Israel you are. You tend to grow into that. And the more you distance yourself from some of the propagandizing that's going on college campuses, the more pro-Israel and pro-America you are. And that's the two strands of the DNA, pro-Israel, pro-America together. And once our young people understand that, once our young people see how our fates are intertwined, it's not only that we have a common enemy, but we also have a shared fate and shared values and a shared future.
Only time will tell which view comes true. Paul Strand, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks for watching this edition of Faith Nation. Have a great night.